Alright, and we're live. How's it going, folks? Again, WitsendFO here. Today, I'm going to be continuing kind of the video that I did before, and I'll probably go more into depth with this, with all of the classes, with the exception of carriers. Those are fairly self-explanatory, and honestly, I'm just not a fan of carriers at all. I really don't enjoy any aspect of that, playing them or playing against them. But anyway, today we're going to be focusing on battleships. That is the most popular class in the game because those are what is cool, you know? When people think about warships and want to see this is a naval artillery game at the end of the day. We're not flying around with cruise missiles. This is all guns, torpedoes, you know. I can't really say World War II ships because there are ships in the game that are past World War II, but all of them have the same base characteristic of being a gun-focused ship, which means no cruise missiles, nothing like that. So this is all guns, and people, when they think of that, come for a lot of times battleships. So that's what we're here for today. We're going to be focusing on battleships, how to be a better player in battleships. So, with that said, you probably have a little experience in battleships. You've probably played them a little bit, might have gotten a bit of a taste for them. Maybe you're struggling a little bit with them, so let's kind of go over some key points of battleships. Battleships are going to be the toughest ships in the game, the toughest class, the ones that can take the hits. They get the best armor, you know, biggest guns. So the guns, I can't say they do the most damage. Cruisers definitely have the most potential for damage of any of the classes, but they do have the hardest hitting guns that are going to do the most damage in a single salvo for the most part. So, you know, that's kind of the basic of it. These guns are meant to chunk somebody's hit bar, you know, wipe the floor with their hit bar in a single salvo, so they can kind of be a clutch shot maker, right? Whereas the cruisers are a lot of times going to be what'll wither down a ship over time, you know, and deal that insane damage per minute. This is going to single salvo chunk somebody. Now, first thing I'm going to go over is the different kinds of battleships in the game. There are a few. And when you're looking at all the different nations here, we have all of them have battleships with the exception of Pan-Asia. Currently, I don't think there's ever going to be Pan-Asian battleships because, as far as I know, there's no Pan-Asian nations that have ever had a battleship. Except for Japan, but they had a big enough navy that they've got their own line. But all of these have battleships, and they're all a little bit different. They've all got their little quirks and features and things like that. You might be wondering, okay, so what do I do? Which one is the best? It's going to come down to a personal preference a lot of times. They'll all, you know, you might be better with one ship over another, but I'll kind of go over what each one of these is about. So Iowa, perhaps the most popular of the Tier 7 battleships, is the Iowa. It is one of the real battleships, the ones that actually existed. This ship right here is, as it says, it's fast. It's got long-range guns, very long-range guns, in fact. You're not going to be getting outranged by too many things, which is nice, and big guns. But what is nice about the Iowa, most of all, not necessarily the speed, because there are ships that are a lot faster than Iowa, is how accurate the guns are. The guns hit hard, and they are accurate. You may notice that battleships, compared to cruisers and destroyers, the guns are a lot less accurate. Iowa is probably the most accurate battleship in the game. If not, it's certainly close. And it's probably the most accurate tech tree battleship, which means the ones here that you can see on this page. There are other battleships. This is a premium page. These aren't all the premiums. These are just kind of like the mainstay premiums, meaning you can buy these at any point. They don't ever leave the store. There are some that come and go, which aren't shown here. And a lot of the better battleships come and go. But Tech Tree basically is referring to all the ships in these screens here. Iowa is probably the most accurate of those. Guns hit hard. They're accurate. It's fast. It's got a lot of hit points. The armor's pretty solid. Got great AA too, but it is very long. It takes, you can see 20-second rudder shift, which is horrendous. That's horrible. It's very prone to taking torpedoes, so there is that, and the torpedo protection is not great at 25%. But torpedoes aren't as much of a problem as you get to be a better player. They're certainly still a threat, but once you start to know what you're doing, they'll be less of a problem. So that's what this ship's about. Accurate guns that hit hard, you know, consistency. They do updates from time to time that change and buff and nerf certain ships. Iowa is pretty consistently a great ship through any update. And more or less, it's always accurate. So keep that in mind. This ship's all about accuracy. Kansas. This is a paper battleship, one that never existed. Probably would have existed were it not for the Washington Naval Treaty, so it's not, you know, completely implausible. But it did not exist. This has, so Iowa has 9 16-inch guns. You probably know that. You can see that if you go to stats and artillery. It'll mention it in the millimeters rather than inches, but 406 is 16s. Kansas also has 16-inch guns, only it has 12 of them. A little bit different than Iowa. You get 12 16-inch guns. They aren't Iowa's guns. They're the Massachusetts or Alabama's guns, so they're a little more floaty, and they don't have the same shell velocity, which means it takes them a little bit longer to hit the target. But the guns are still very accurate. A lot more accurate than most other ships. Kansas is a great ship in the current meta as of the recording of this video. Reload is a few seconds longer than Iowa, so keep that in mind. But the guns, you get 12 16-inch American guns that hit hard. Pretty accurate too. Not as accurate as Iowa, but it's pretty accurate. Lot slower than Iowa though. You can see this is the slowest battleship at tier 7, 22.5 knots. So it's very slow. Much better rudder shift, much better turning circle. It's got a great turning circle, but the speed is definitely lackluster. Another thing is this ship is very squishy, which means it is very prone to taking damage. You get a significant amount less hit points. Iowa has 73,000, 72,000. This has 68,000. So that's that could be an extra salvo from a battleship that you could survive in the Iowa where you won't survive in Kansas. And Kansas is going to take bigger hits more often. It's got less armor. It's covered in 32mm plating everywhere. Iowa has 40. And I'll get more into armor thresholds in just a moment here. But just know that this ship is a little more squishy, still has great guns, you get more of them, but it's slow, a little more squishy, and slightly longer reload. So keep that in mind. But as of currently, Kansas is a great ship. 12 16-inch guns again. Moving on to Japan, you go all the way through here. You'll see the Amagi. The Amagi, again, a paper ship. This is a battle cruiser, so not as well armored as other ships here. You can see the green is lighter armor. That is torpedo protection, not the actual armor belt. This no, it's the casemate. This right here is the armor belt. You can see up at the top is 32. The side plating is 254. That's pretty thin. That's quite thin, in fact. So if this thing goes broadside, it gets punched pretty hard. But Amagi, it has 16-inch guns as well. It has Japanese 16s. These are 410mm, so they're slightly bigger than Iowa's. You won't notice that, but they're slightly bigger technically. They are 16-inch guns. They've got pretty solid range, pretty solid AP. It's fairly accurate. Not incredibly accurate, but it'll hit. The difference between this and Iowa, why you'd run this over Iowa, it's fast. Let me check the speed here with my build, see if it's any different. Looks to be slightly faster than the Iowa. And the HE, the high explosive, is a lot better than Iowa's. If we go here, you'll notice the shell damage is about the same as Iowa's, but the HE shell is a lot better, 6,500. That's hard-hitting HE. And you get one extra gun than Iowa, plus you have them in 5 turrets instead of 3. So if one of your guns gets knocked out, not that big a deal, because you still have 8 more guns. So this has 10 16-inch guns total. Kansas has 12. This has 10. Iowa has 9. These reload in, let's see, 26.4 seconds. So that's about the same as Iowa's. So yeah, difference between this and Iowa, basically less accurate, but much better HE, a little bit faster. It's a great ship. Amagi is a solid ship as well. It's not the best ship. It's definitely probably towards the lower end of the pack, but it's definitely workable. You might be wondering where the Yamato is. The Yamato is in the game, and you can get it for free, but it works a little bit differently. I'll explain that in a second, but that's the Amagi. That's the best you can get through the tech tree. Next up is Britain. These ships right here, this is a great line. It plays a little bit differently than most other battleship lines. This is the Vanguard. It is their tier 7 ship. This is a real battleship. It actually did exist. It's actually the last battleship ever built. It entered just after World War II. Now this one has 4 guns, twin barrels, so 8 guns total, and they are 15-inch guns. So you might be sitting here thinking, okay, why would I want 8 15-inch guns instead of 12 16-inch guns? That makes no sense. A couple of reasons. Show you. So this has a much better reload than other battleships. It's by 5 seconds, and I've seen some builds that get this down into the 18-second range, which is approaching what a cruiser reloads in. So it reloads quick. AP's shell damage is pretty solid, 14,500. I believe that is actually more than Iowa's. Let me check here. Yes, it is, by slightly. It's a little bit more than Iowa's. So the shells actually hurt more than Iowa's shells. So it reloads faster, AP's hurts a lot more, and fire, the HE shells, that's this thing's bread and butter. The HE shells hurt a lot. You can see 6,700 damage with 42% chance of fire, and that reloads every 22 seconds. They also have increased HE shell penetration, so the HE shells get a lot further down and are more prone to deal massive damage than other HE shells. A couple other things here. It has a few other quirks. Most battleships have a repair party. Vanguard's repair party is probably 2 or 3 times better than other battleships. So you'll get to heal a lot more damage back. Then you also have this right here, main battery reload booster. You get one of these, unless you build for a specific way. You get one of these. This cuts the reload time in half. So you'll end up getting a 10-second reload for 1 or 2 salvos, which is significant because if you get the opportunity to shoot a battleship, you want to capitalize on that as much as possible. So in an Iowa, you might get 1 salvo off. This thing you could get 2 or 3. So that's kind of why you'd want to take this over the Iowa. A lot better reload, a lot better HE, and it's got a couple of nice quirks like that reload booster and the heals as well. It's also got a fair amount of hit points, 71,700. That's pretty solid. So keep that in mind. Solid AA, it's definitely more maneuverable than Iowa, and it also has much better detectability. So you can kind of sneak around in Vanguard without getting spotted better than you would in other battleships. So this is a great ship as well, but probably a higher skill wall than something like the Iowa. Moving on, we have the German battleships up at the top. Of course, it's the Bismarck. Bismarck is what we call a brawler. So this ship, again, you probably know this, it has 8 15-inch guns. This reloads in 26 seconds, so that's about the same as Iowa's. Let's see here. Less shell damage as well. HE isn't anything to scoff at either. But if we go over here, ironclad, which means better armor. You're less likely to take citadels in this thing. If you go broadside in an American battleship, you might notice that half of your health or sometimes all of your health disappears. This one, that doesn't really happen. It's a lot easier to hit for, maybe a fifth of its health than Iowa is if you screw up, but you're not likely to get all of your health removed in a single salvo. So it's a little more forgiving in that way. Secondary reach. That's another thing. That's the kind of the draw to this battleship right here. Is these secondaries, you'll notice on most battleships, they don't reach out that far, right? It's only if a destroyer gets insanely close to you that those secondaries will start firing. They're not going to do much damage. Different story with the Bismarck. These secondaries with this build reach out to 10.2 kilometers, and I have another build that actually gets it up to 11. I've seen some that approach 12, which means most things that you can see, for the most part, you can get pretty close and start firing secondary batteries at them, and they'll be more accurate than other ships. But you can kind of imagine the benefits of that, right? You have constantly secondaries going off to supplement your main battery. So that's what the Bismarck is about. Another thing here, it also gets a sonar, which is kind of a cruiser perk, right? A sonar is going to help you spot things through smoke screens at a farther distance. It's going to help you spot torpedoes at a further distance. It can also help you spot things around islands that you couldn't see otherwise. So you can kind of imagine the benefits of that. It gets actually a great sonar. So 4.4 kilometer detection of ships, 3.1 kilometer detection of torpedoes. You get 2 of them with this build, and it lasts for 96 seconds. That's a minute and a half. So if you see a smoke screen in front of you, you could pop the sonar and go and avoid the torpedoes, maybe light up that destroyer. So it's going to be a lot better equipped to deal with destroyers than other battleships. It's also pretty maneuverable as well. It's got a pretty good turning circle. Rudder shift isn't bad. You could definitely get that better, but it feels a lot more maneuverable than the Iowa or other battleships. It's pretty quick. Also goes 27.9 knots, which isn't bad. So, and again, you could make that faster. Hit points aren't bad either, 69,200. So that's kind of the draw to the Bismarck, is the secondaries. It's like a fireworks show. They're constantly going off. It's pretty cool to see. Next up is France. This is the Richelieu right here. This is my personal favorite battleship. It's a little weird looking, you'll notice. It's got 3 tiny guns in the back, and then 2 quadruple turrets up front. These are 15-inch guns, so not 16s, these are 15s, but they hurt quite a bit. Let me show you some of these statistics here. It's fast, has nimble aim, which basically means the turrets rotate quicker. You might think that's not too important. A lot of times I might start to agree with you, but in this ship, trust me, because all the guns are over the front, you can get off shots on things that might be showing you a really good angle that you wouldn't be able to get on other ships. The shells also travel pretty quickly as well, so it's a lot easier to hit things too. Keep that in mind. And these guns also have great penetration, so they get citadels a lot. They're not accurate, but it kind of seems to ignore it. It's like, if you get a broadside target in this thing, it punches through and gets citadels quite often. HE's not bad either, but the main thing is the AP just, it hurts. The other thing, this thing's armor, I don't want to call it tanky, because it can get chunked a fair amount, but it doesn't take citadels, and it's not, you're not likely to be hit for more than 10,000 damage very often. So it's kind of unique in that. A lot of other battleships, you can get punched pretty hard at times. This thing doesn't really like to get punched. Does get secondary booster. These things, secondaries, they're not anything special, so don't really pay much attention to that. Gets an engine booster, which allows you to get into spots and get what we call crossfires, which means getting somebody's broadside, catching them in a spot they don't want to be in, a lot easier. Low hit points, so it's on the lower end of hit points. The build I have actually decreases hit points, so it's a little bit better than this. It's like a 65,000 normally. Torpedo protection's a little bit better than Iowa at 35% damage reduction. Firing range not bad, 19 kilometers. Iowa's is 19.5. Reload time is pretty solid with this build, 24.4. So they reload pretty quick. You'll notice AP shells, not the hardest hitting, but again, it seems to just get citadels all the time. So keep that in mind. Fast, it's also fast with this build. It's 32 knots, and you get an extra 8% with the the engine boost. So that brings it up to mid-30s. So that's quite a bit faster than other battleships. Granted, this doesn't have the skill which reduces battleship speed, but it's the fastest battleship that you can get with that with the engine boost. It's the fastest tech tree battleship. Next up is the Russian battleships here. All but one of these are fake. This is the only one that was real, the Gangut. World War I battleship. This is the only one that's real. So, but the rest of these are all paper. This is the Vladivostok. This ship is, it's a great ship. It is. It takes, if you don't know what you're doing, you're not going to have a great time in it. But if you know what you're doing, you're going to have a fantastic time in it. So, we go over here. Ironclad above average armor thickness. That's correct. It has the thickest armor at tier 7. Sure shot. The shells travel very quickly. It's very easy to hit things. And superior AP penetration. It loves to get citadels. This thing gets devastating salvos a lot. It's a great ship. A couple things to note here. So, this thing has the thickest armor at tier 7. I believe the belt goes all the way. Yeah, 370 millimeters at the bottom, which is very thick. So if you're angled in this ship, you'll be able to bounce pretty much anything, except for Yamato. You can bounce shells a lot. People will shoot at you and get no damage. I'm not talking they get a little bit of damage. People will shoot at you and get nothing. Shatter everything, which is nice. But if you go broadside, you will be removed in a single shot by a battleship. It gets punched harder going broadside than anything else. So keep that in mind. If somebody gets a crossfire on you, it means your death. That said, it does have less heals. It only gets 2 heals compared to the average 3 that every other battleship gets. So keep that in mind. The other thing is it gets limited damage control parties. So you only have 4 of these with these build tip, but it can be as low as 3. So it reloads quite a bit quicker at only 40 seconds, but you only have 4 of them. Most of the time for me, that's not a problem. You know, it ends up being enough. Normally you can't damage con more than 4 times anyway. So it's kind of a benefit, but just keep that in mind. AP absolutely slaps. HE's, it's solid. It's not, I don't think it's anything too fantastic, but the AP slaps. Little less firing range than most other things at only 18.6 versus Iowa with 19.5. Keep that in mind. But this is also a fantastic ship. You know, very tanky. It's one of my favorites. But if you screw up, you will be punished harder than anything else. So keep that in mind. Lastly, we have the Vittorio Veneto. This is a real battleship as well, believe it or not. It's the same class as the Roma battleship. So this thing right here, there were actually 3 of them. The 4th one was never completed, but there were 3 of this class of battleship. Italian. It has 9 15-inch guns, so these are 15s. So a few things to note here. It's very similar to Vladivostok in that if you angle properly, you can bounce most everything. The armor isn't quite as thick, but it is still very thick. So if you angle properly, you can bounce pretty much everything. If you angle improperly, you can be removed in a single shot. So keep that in mind. It's kind of that, you know, skill wall thing where you cannot let yourself get into a position to be crossfired, or it will mean your death. You will not get away with it, I promise you. The draw to this ship is the secondaries, just like the Bismarck. Difference between this and the Bismarck is these secondaries are not shooting high explosive shells. They don't have a chance to start fires. They're shooting what's called semi-armor piercing. So they'll deal a lot more damage than Bismarck shells, and they shred destroyers. If a destroyer comes within your secondary firing range, it will get shredded. There's no chance of them causing a fire, but they do a lot of damage. So keep that in mind. However, they do not fire out to near as far. It only has a base 5-kilometer firing range. I personally don't have this battleship. I'm working on it. I have all the other ones, but not the Veneto. Secondaries are the draw. It's probably the weakest battleship at the moment. You'll notice the firing range can be a lot better. This is just because I don't have a commander on it. Firing range isn't anything fantastic. It's about the same as Vladivostok's with the commander. Shell damage, not anything fantastic. Below average fire chances. The reload is 34 seconds. It's quite a bit. That can, with a commander, it's going to be brought down to about 27. So keep that in mind. It's higher than it actually looks. But even so, not anything fantastic. And the guns are also inaccurate. So why would you want to run this? Well, it's fun. It's not fantastic, but it's fun. The secondaries definitely shred things. And then another thing here is it gets more heals than the average ship. It gets 4 instead of 3. And it gets the rolling smoke. So it gets a smoke screen as a battleship. It gets the same thing that destroyers do. Now what's different about this versus the destroyer versus other smoke screens is it's rolling, which means you can charge full speed ahead. You will not outrun your smoke. So you can kind of imagine what you could do with that, right? If you want to get around to a spot, you don't want to get deleted in doing so, you don't want to get removed, but you want to get around to a spot where you can get some crossfires on some broadsides. This is going to allow you to do that. It can allow you to sneak up and get crossfires and set ambushes as a battleship, which is fun. It allows you to close the distance. You get your secondaries off. So it's pretty cool. I don't have it. Again, personally it's not a great battleship. It's a lot of fun though, from the looks of it. So that's kind of what they're all about. All the different tech tree battleships, right? 1 second here. Excuse me, had to sneeze. So you can kind of make your choice based on that, right? Kind of went over the different benefits and draws to the different battleship lines. Keep in mind, Tier 7 is not the be-all, end-all of gameplay. In fact, a lot of times us experienced players will not only actively avoid the highest tier, which is legendary tier, but we actually drop it down to about tier 5 to tier 7. This is kind of where the funnest gameplay is, tier 5 through tier 7. Sometimes 4 is a lot of fun. 3 is just, the ships are pretty all good at tier 3. It's just, at that point, you're playing with a bunch of inexperienced players, and it would just kind of be bullying. So, not really something we do. But tier 5, you'll run into experienced players a lot, and tier 5, 6, and 7, all a lot of fun. So it's not all about tier 7, but as a new player, this is what you're looking at. You want to get up to the top, right? That's your goal. But you'll start to appreciate tier 5 more and more. So those are the tier 5 or the tier 7 battleships. Which line do I personally recommend going through at first? Well, again, your personal preference entirely. I think Iowa is probably the quintessential battleship. It'll teach you all the great fundamentals of being a battleship, teach you what it's all about, what to do, what not to do, and you'll have a lot of fun in it. So I recommend going through the Iowa. However, there's a caveat to that. If we take a look here, so there's a caveat to the Iowa. So you'll notice that when you're setting up your commanders, right, you got a lot of different choices. Maybe you don't have a lot of different choices, but there's a lot of commanders out there. You might only have 2 or 3 of them at this point. There are some commanders which are battleship commanders and some commanders that are not. So if we take a look here, I'm going to go to my commanders screen. Some of these commanders, like the Space Fishy, they were from events, but these guys, with the exception of Shelley Beepley, are all real commanders. So, they were the real ones. These are the ones you can get for free to play without Shelley Beepley. Every nation has real commanders that you can get free to play. Space Fishy is not one of them. The rest of them are. This one, all of them real with the exception of Azure Lane Nelson. You can kind of point out which ones aren't real, right? Obviously, Azure Lane Scharnhorst isn't real. The rest of them that are, you can get free to play. So, you want to take a look here and take a look at your commanders. See which ones you have. So I'm going to go over the different battleship commanders. With every nation, there's 2 normally. There's 2 different commander types that you'll get as a free-to-play player. You may not have them right now, but that's what we're going to go over here. So for the Americans, you have 2 of them. You have Willis Lee and you have William Sims. William Sims is the commander you want for all but one of the American battleships. This is the accuracy commander. I was mentioning there's 2 types. This is one of them, is the accuracy commander. It makes the battleship shells hurt more, makes things more accurate. Or you get more range. You know, so this is the accuracy commander. He is who you want for your American battleships. If you don't have him, you can run Willis Lee. Not going to be quite as good though. This is the tank build commander, we call it. It's also what we use for secondaries. Basically makes your ship more tanky, less likely to catch on fire or flood, longer range secondaries, and the main draw to this kind of commander is this skill right here, Master Mechanic. Basically gives you an extra 2 repair parties, so it allows you to regenerate a lot more health. So you can kind of imagine the benefits of that, right? These are the 2 for the Americans. Again, William Sims is the accuracy commander, Willis Lee is the tank build. It's the same for every nation here. Takao Takagi, this guy on the top left, he's the accuracy commander for the Japanese. He's the one you want for the most part. Usually it is the accuracy commanders, just keep that in mind, but this is the accuracy. And then Kondo, Nobutake Kondo is the tank build commander. Again, secondary tank build, either way, same thing. British, you have 2. You have Andrew Cunningham, he's the accuracy commander. He is actually a quintessential battleship commander. I'll go over that in just a second. He is the accuracy commander for the British. Charles Madden is the tank build commander for the British. For the British, I'd actually say that Charles Madden is the one you want to go with Vanguard anyway. The rest of them, you could go Cunningham, but Vanguard, I would recommend going Charles Madden. Germany, Franz von Hipper is the accuracy commander, and Otto Silax is the tank build commander. So keep that in mind. France, Robert Jajard is the accuracy commander, and Emile Guiprat is the tank build commander. For Germany, I think a lot of the time you're going to actually want to run Silax. However, you're going to want to level up Franz von Hipper. I'll go into that in a second, but definitely level up Franz von Hipper. He's who's going to make your, German battleships more fun, and your secondary focus battleships. But Otto Silax is who's going to be the primary guy that you'll end up running a lot of times. France, Robert Jajard, probably you can, with any of these, you can run either of these 2 commanders, but Robert Jajard is probably going to be the better choice for every one of the French battleships, I would say, except for a couple of the premium ones, which you're not likely to have. USSR, you have 2 of them. Lev Galler is the accuracy commander, and Mikhail Kedrov is the tank build commander. You could go either way with this. Russian battleships are tanky, so you could build more into that, get these extra heals, or you could try and make them a little more accurate, because the guns are a little bit wonky, but they hit hard. So I personally prefer Lev Galler, but you could go either way. Italy is the only exception here in that, as a free-to-play player in the current meta, you do not get a free accuracy commander, and a lot of us are pretty upset about that. To get the accuracy commander, you had to buy this thing, and it doesn't make the guns all that accurate. It's the only nation they did this for. Honestly, we're pretty salty about it, so keep that in mind. They're gonna have to fix that at some point. But right now, this is the only free-to-play battleship commander you get. He's a tank build commander, so no accuracy. But he may be who you want to run anyway, right? Because he's the secondary guy, he's the tank build, so it's probably who you want to run anyway. But keep that in mind. So, going over commanders here, when you click on them, you'll notice you get a lot of different skills. Most of them are going to be the same for every nation. Like, for dispersion commanders, pretty much these skills are all the same for every one of these guys. So for accuracy, I recommend running Flammable Cannoneer. It increases your range, which is important, very important. Increases your shell grouping, increases your risk of catching fire, which not good, but you really need that extra range. You do not want to be shot at while you cannot shoot back in a battleship, because you cannot dodge shells. It's not maneuverable enough. Gyrating drill bits increases AP shell damage at the cost of speed. It makes the guns hit harder, so You know, and it also allows them to rotate a little bit quicker as well. The alternative is rotating guns quicker. It's actually pretty much, you're actually getting faster rotating guns with gyrating drill bits on a battleship anyway, so unless you just do not want to lose that speed, there's no reason not to run this. This is going to increase dispersion. The alternative allows you to switch shells if they're all fully loaded quicker. So instead of having, if you had AP loaded, for example, a destroyer starts rushing you, you want HE loaded for a destroyer. You could switch the shells quicker. It would only have to, you'd only end up reloading 55% as long as you normally would, so it cuts it in half, but that's still significant. Not really worth it in my mind. I'd much rather have the dispersion. So keep that in mind. And then I end up, this is a personal preference, you could go with this one right here, which decreases how long it takes for your damage control to reload, but it decreases how long it lasts too. To me, that's, to me that's not worth it, so I end up going for the extra range, but personal preference. Like I said, pretty much the same for all these guys. Now, every one of these commanders has a unique base trait. For this guy, it's built to last. It increases your hit points for every tier you're at by, in this case, 280. If I level him up, it goes up to 300. So the higher level, the better this trait gets, and the better all of these traits get. You notice these little circles to the left of the traits. That means if they're full, they're fully upgraded. Half full means they're half upgraded. And you can see if I leveled this guy up more, it goes up. And you see the green circle kind of increases based on the level for different skills, right? But you're also increasing your base trait. Now, your base trait's important. What it does is it's a free skill, for one, that you get for running the commander, but it also allows you to add the commander as an inspiration. This basically is 2 more free skills that you get to pick from any of these commanders. So, I mean, looking at all these different base skills, you got speed, shell grouping, reload and turret traverse time, secondary range and secondary accuracy. So you can kind of imagine how you get to customize things, right? Doesn't end up being too different for any other battleships. Most of the battleships end up running the same build, but you know, it can make things interesting at times. For a accuracy focused battleship, you want Cunningham. This is why leveling up Cunningham is important. He's pretty much going to go on every single one of your battleship builds as a free-to-play player. He increases the grouping of your shells, which basically means how close together they are. Shells aren't going to spread out quite as much as they would without him. It increases it by 4.5%, which doesn't sound like much, but it does make a difference. So he's important. He's why when you want to level up, definitely. And actually, it's not a bad idea to go down the British line. If you get this guy, it's not a bad idea just to upgrade him as much as possible. He's kind of your primary battleship inspiration, so keep that in mind. This one is not a free-to-play commander, also just kind of makes things less dispersion, which means how far off the target your shells go. If you don't have this commander, for an accuracy build, you could run Charles Madden here, which increases or decreases reload and how long it takes your turrets to readjust. Or you could also run, another popular choice here is Jajard. Robert Jajard increases the penetration. You're more likely to get a citadel on a battleship. Also means you're more likely to overpen a cruiser, which you may be familiar with overpens at this point. When you shoot at a cruiser, sometimes they get away with questionable things that other ships don't. Basically just means the shell passed right through them. You had too much penetration, and it doesn't end up detonating. That's another thing about the British battleships, is they're less likely to overpen cruisers, but also less likely to citadel battleships. So they're better at removing cruisers than other battleships, but less good at citadeling battleships. So, Cunningham's your primary inspiration for most dispersion builds. The other options for your second, really, I mean, it's kind of based on who you have leveled up. Like, if I have Bruce Fraser at a high level, you know, even though that skill isn't that great for a battleship, an extra 2.5% speed, I'd rather have an extra 2.5% speed than, say, if I go all the way down to my low-level commanders here. Let's see. This guy reduces damage control duration. Let's just say that was one I really wanted. I'd rather have the extra 2% speed than 0.15% damage control reduction. So that's gonna kind of make a difference as far as who you're picking. But in ideal circumstances, Cunningham is your first, and your second is probably either Jajard, Charles Madden, or the Italian commander Paolo di Ravelle. So keep that in mind. You actually don't unlock inspirations for your different commanders until you get them to a specific level. So let's just say Ernest King here. This is a carrier commander. Now let's go to Arleigh Burke. He's a destroyer commander. You notice I only have one skill unlocked for this guy. I can pick this one, or this one, or this one. If I try and pick this, it's locked. It's because this guy is not leveled up at all. He's a rank 1. So if we go down, we could press A and rank him up to rank 2, or go further down and rank him up to rank 8. If you notice in the inspiration slot over here, they are locked, and they remain locked all the way. You get your first one at rank 7 and your second one at rank 11. So rank 11 is kind of, where your commander starts to be ideal, right? So keep that in mind, and it costs commander XP, which you earn from doing battles and promotion orders. Once you get to level 7, it costs promotion orders. You get that from completing weekly challenges. You can do that free to play. Don't worry about that. Just take some time. So yeah. But as far as which battleship line you go down, ideally you want Cunningham ranked up first. He's gonna make all the difference in the world, so ideally you want this guy ranked up first. But which one you go down is gonna depend on who you have unlocked. So if you have William Sims unlocked for the Americans, do the Americans. If you have Takao Takagi unlocked for the Japanese, do the Japanese. If you have Cunningham unlocked for the UK, 100% do the UK. I mean, British battleships are great, and this is a key commander for you guys. Germans. If you have Franz von Hipper, yes, do the Germans. Germans are a lot of fun. If you have France, and that's, I was mentioning earlier, to make the Bismarck good, you kind of need Franz von Hipper leveled up, because he's going to make you difference between your secondaries, how far they can go out, right? And you want to rank this guy up to the max rank before you really start to use Silax, so keep that in mind. He should be ranked up to the max or high before you start to throw on Silax instead of von Hipper. So just keep that in mind. But if you have Germany unlocked, if you have Franz von Hipper, do it. If you have Silax, sure. If you have Jajard, do the French. Sure, why not? The French is a great line. If you have the Lev Galler, sure, do the Russians. Russians, I didn't have a great time with the Russians until Tier 6. The Tier 6 and 7 battleships are great. The rest of them are kind of meh for me. So just keep that in mind. But if you have Italy, yeah, do Italy. Why not? You'll have fun. You might struggle a little bit compared to other lines, but you'll have fun doing it. And it'll teach you some fundamentals about being a battleship as well. But it'll be a fun line. So whoever you have your battleship commanders unlocked for, do that line first. If you have none of these dispersion inspirations, then take a look at who you have for tank builds. Just take a look, see if you have any of them. If you have a tank build commander unlocked and he's your only one, why not? Go for it, right? Generally, it's going to mean you have a lot better time than if you're just running a random cruiser commander versus a battleship commander. So just keep that in mind. If you have none of them unlocked, or the tank build commander like Emile Gourprat, he's not one you're going to be running as an inspiration often. He may not be one you want to stick with, so you might just run that line until you get another commander through one of the crates that you'll unlock just for playing the game. On top of that, you can purchase commanders if you go to the store. Go all the way over to commanders, and you can purchase any of these guys for 900,000 lead XP. Doesn't take that long to get it. As a new player, it might feel like a long time, but trust me, it doesn't take that long to get it. And then what's more, if you go to campaign and missions, This is like it's kind of like a battle pass for this game. You know, you purchase it with the purchasable currency, the doubloons. You purchase a backing, or you could buy it out and instantly get the benefits. Do the backing if you're going to do anything. This is the best value of any kind of in-game purchase in the game, are these campaigns. Not only do you get a free ship at the end of it, this time it's the Flandre. It's a French battleship. It's a pretty solid battleship. So you get a free ship that, even if you hate it, you could sell it for a lot of credits. I don't recommend doing that, but you could do it. But again, really don't recommend doing that. Keep these ships. They're normally really good. You also get camos, crates, doubloons, promotion orders, all kinds of stuff. You know, so this is the best value in the game. It only costs 2,500 gold to get the backing. Don't buy it out. Buy the backing and just complete these the missions. It is the heroic effort, and you'll have not endless trials. You'll have some other kind of mission that'll give you, if you take a look, it'll tell you to earn this much XP or get 10 citadels, get 10 fires, something like that. Just complete those missions and you'll end up ranking out and getting the ship for $10 instead of $100, right? Keep that in mind. Aside from that, you still get free rewards from these campaigns too. It's not near as much, and you cannot get the ship, but you can get free rewards even if you don't purchase the Admiralty backing. So do these missions, even if you're not buying anything, do those. You might have some of these. These are okay under the assignment section. It's normally something weird like a commander guys, or maybe you have some missions to play a certain ship. You might get some gold. It's usually only when they do updates that add new ships that they add this, but you might have it. It'll give you some free gold by doing those. But these trials, this is kind of the main page here. Weekly boost, you'll notice you're getting promotion orders for doing this. Camos, boosters, and promotion orders, which help you to rank up commanders, right? But then this also, in the middle of this first one, there's a little brown box down there for this weekly boost. So that is actually a commander crate. If you complete this mission, you will get a commander every week for free. It's a random one. You can't pick who it is. It's going to be completely random, but you'll start just stacking them up and you'll get them all as time goes on. You also get daily boost here. This is definitely less significant rewards, but they're still worth doing. So, especially as a new player. Premium supplies. This is only if you have premium ships, like the ones that you purchase for the doubloons, or some of them you can get for free, but it's harder. But this is stuff, extra rewards you have for premium ships. So that's kind of the tech tree keys, right? Next up, premium ships. Like we mentioned, there are, we go over to ships here. These are kind of all ships you can purchase for doubloons, but you also have these that are purchasable for this green star stuff. This is a free currency, actually. You earn this just for planned battles. It'll take you a little while to get to 750,000, which is the number that you want, because that's going to be where you get the good tier 7 ships. But you'll get there eventually. And when you get there, you'll be able to buy a ship that's normally really, really good. Like the Suja. This is a great cruiser. It's very HE focused. You burn so many things down with this. This thing's damage is insane. The Key. This is the Amagi, the tech tree battleship. Only instead of just being a regular Amagi, you get much thicker armor and torpedoes. You get 3 torpedoes on each side as a battleship. So you can kind of imagine the fun that you could have with that, right? Let's see. These ships kind of come and go as time goes on, so keep that in mind. What's in the store now may not be in the store later. The Monarch, not a great ship. I don't from what I hear anyway. It's kind of like it gets insane heals, but the torpedo protection is really bad. If you take 3 torpedoes, you're dead. It doesn't matter really what they are, and also very, very low hit points as well. So keep that in mind. Germany, I don't think they have anything at tier 7. Prince Eugen's a cruiser. France, Champagne, don't do this. I have it. I like it, but it's not a good ship. It's probably the worst battleship at tier 7. It's unique. and it kind of plays like a cruiser, kind of, but trust me, it's not good. Just too low hit points, it gets damaged a lot. It's too easy to destroy. It just is. I don't recommend the Champagne. Gasconia, it's not as easy to destroy as Champagne, but there's really just no reason to play this over Richelieu. Richelieu's better, so not really worth it either. Don't recommend it. I think the armor's thicker, so, but it's still not worth it. You're better off with both guns up front. It's better than Champagne for sure, but again, not worth it. So we go to USSR. They don't have any battleships that you could buy for global XP, but this is the Stalingrad here. This is the most expensive global XP ship. It's 2 million. This is a legendary tier cruiser. Legendary tier, I'll get into that in just a second, but it's kind of, you can purchase it with global XP instead of the other method to get legendary tier ships. Roma, not a great ship either. It's kind of like a Veneto without a smokescreen or the SAP secondaries, so it kind of takes the things that make the Veneto fun, and it doesn't have them. Not worth it. Paolo Emilio, it's a great destroyer, but we're talking battleships here. Pan Asia does not have any battleships. I don't think they ever will. So then if you go to ships, the ship screen, go all the way to the right, you see premium. I think these are mostly global XP ships. There's a few in doubloons. These are all the ships that are constantly available in the store. All 4 of these guys are all global XP ships. Of these 4, you have the Tirpitz here. You might be wondering where the Tirpitz is. This is here. You get the torpedoes. The secondaries don't reach out as far as Bismarcks, but the guns reload quicker, and you get torpedoes, so it can be fun. But of these 4, the Alabama is the one to go with. It's like a Iowa with less hit points. The guns are just as accurate, but it's much more agile. So you're a lot better, a lot easier to dodge torpedoes. It's smaller, so it's much less of a target to hit. It's a great ship. It really is. So this is the best battleship that you could buy for global XP currently, I would say. So keep that in mind. Lastly, last thing I go over before I get into gameplay here is the Bureau. This is how you unlock the Yamato. You do not see the Yamato here because I already have it unlocked. It's also how you get the Montana. Also, there's another one called the Conqueror. That's a British battleship. It's the only real one here. The only real battleship is the Yamato, obviously. So if we go to archive, these are all my completed ones. Basically, this is like how you unlock it. You have to research it, essentially. Kind of is just locking the ship behind a time wall. You don't have to pay for it. You'll get it, but, you know, paying for it makes it a little bit faster. Not worth it. Don't recommend. It's expensive and it doesn't really boost you that far. Just start researching it and take your time. Free to play, you'll be able to research one ship at a time. If you're going with the Admiralty, or I'm sorry, the Premium, you get to research 2 at a time. So keep that in mind. Also, let's see. So we have 3 battleships, or 4 battleships you can research. You have the Yamato, which is probably the best. You have the Kurfürst, which is the biggest battleship in the game, but that is a disadvantage, not an advantage. Trust me, it's not going to make you look cool for running it. You're just going to be a very easy target to hit. It's like a Bismarck on steroids. Very long-range secondaries, gets 12 16-inch guns, but they're a little bit inaccurate, and it's pretty squishy. It's pretty easy to touch. And then Conqueror, squishy, but it gets insane heals, and the HE is crazy. This thing is, it's got the most potential to deal damage of any of the battleships, but it's definitely a harder ship to play. Yamato is probably going to be, you want Yamato to be your first one. So basically, to get it, you're going to just go into it. I'll go to one that I haven't finished yet. It's going to look exactly the same for Yamato here. So let's say Alaska here. You're going to start out in this little segment. Each one of these guys has, each segment has 5 stages. So let's go to the one I'm at here. So basically, what this is it's basically the time it's taking to research each segment. You get rewards along the way. It can be gold, commanders, promotion orders, insignias, useful things, right? Excuse me, useful things. But you can speed up the time to research it by doing breakthrough. That's basically paying for it with gold. Again, not worth it. Don't do it. It's a horrible, horrible use of money, and it's very expensive. But you can also boost it by having certain ships. For this ship, if you have the premium Mutsu, the Tech Tree Bayern, Mahan, New Mexico, that can kind of speed it up. For every one you have, you can have up to 2. Let's remove this. I guess I can. Let's go to... I'm just going to activate one of these just to kind of show you. I'm going to activate the Montana and replace the Alaska real quick. So this is fresh off the bat. This is what your screen's going to look like, okay? So you'll have one of 5 stages. Again, each one of these is 5, so it's going to take a few months to unlock one of these ships. I'm sorry, that's just the way it is, but trust me, you'll have a lot more fun at the lower tiers, and legendary tier, it takes a good amount of skill for you to even want to attempt that. If you screw up, I mean, it's bad. You will not have a good time if you do not know what you're doing. So get your experience, enjoy your time before you even start it, okay? And you'll get little rewards along the way. But just start this. Day 1, go ahead and start this as soon as you can. Start the Yamato, I recommend. Montana is probably, I'd say for most people, should be the second. It plays a lot more like a battleship you'll be familiar with. Conqueror and Kurfürst are less familiar, because legendary tier just kind of, it's different than any other tier. That's just the best way I have of putting it. So if you go up here to patrons, this is basically commanders. You can apply commanders if you have them. And if you notice down at the bottom, that green progress bar, it went up quite a bit by adding the commander. So you notice down at the bottom, you get +3 of these points per second. For adding a commander, I'm getting an extra +4 points per second. So if I add Sims, let's take a look at this green bar. Let's add Sims. It boosted quite a bit. Let's see, if I have any of these battleships here, or any of these ships I should say, I can boost it even further. The Koenig is one of them. I have that ship. I'll go ahead and throw that on there. Boosted it even more. I have the Colorado unlocked, but I sold it, so I don't have the ability to throw it on. And then you also have daily trials. It's a trial you can complete once a day. So tier 5 ships basically means take out any tier 5 ship, win a battle, and you get 100,000 of these points. So nothing too crazy, but you can do up to 3 of them. So Hawkins, if I take out the Hawkins, that's another 100,000 points. Or if I had the Colorado, it's another 100,000 points if I do all 3 of these. That's just kind of ways to speed things up a little bit for free. But that's basically what that's going to look like. So it's going to take you, if you have all the stuff, a few months, probably 2-3 months. So keep that in mind, and you can kind of take a look at. I'm going to go ahead and activate the Alaska again, just because I want that more than the Montana. Okay. So if we go to my archive, this is just all the stuff I've completed so far. If I go to Yamato, you could take a look at what you need, or you would be able to anyway. Let's just do that with a different one. Des Moines. This is a broken ship right now. It's brand new. You could take a look at all the different stages and what you'd need to do it, right? And if you see not obtained, that means it's not a ship you have. But if you have it unlocked, it won't say not obtained, and you'd be able to throw that there. So you can go through the different stages, and every stage is a little bit different. And then also, the other thing is with the commanders. So if I go up to higher, see requires rank 12, which basically means this guy, I have him at rank 7. I'd have to have him at rank 12 for me to be able to apply him to this. So just keep that in mind. Yamato is not a ship you're going to be able to get immediately, but it's not a ship you want to get immediately. You don't want to be going up against other people at legendary tier before you know what you're doing. With all of that said, I know it was quite a bit. With all of that said, let's get into some actual gameplay here and just kind of show you what you want to be doing in a battleship. So let's go low tier. Let's go. American's probably going to be our most popular. And if I didn't mention this already, when you first start out, you're playing cruisers, you need to get to tier 3. You need to have the Phoenix and play it a little bit, get enough XP to get to the Wyoming. That's the first American battleship, and then you can go ahead and view the Wyoming and purchase it. So you need to play 3 cruisers at first before you play any battleships. From there, you don't have to play any more cruisers if you don't want to. You could just continue on and unlock the next battleship, and the next battleship, and the next battleship, and so on, right? The Nevada, you need to play the Wyoming first, and you need to play the New York for a little bit, and then you can get the Nevada, and this will take you down the line of the Kansas. So you need to play Wyoming and New York for a fair amount, then you can swap down to Nevada, then Tennessee, North Carolina, Kansas. So you cannot switch from Iowa to Kansas. You need to look for these little arrow paths to see where you can kind of switch down the line. And that applies with any of these, right? So I need to play the Kuma before I get the Ishizuki. I need to play, for example, Karlsruhe before I play the Kaiser. So you can kind of see that, right? With that said, let's go ahead and play the Wyoming here. I've not played this ship in a little while. Modules, that's another thing here. Upgrades are self-explanatory. Buy these when you can. The hull should be the first thing you buy. That's the most useful. And then the range increase, and then followed by the speed increase. That should be your priority as a battleship. So first thing, get the hull, then the range, then the engine. This first slot here, it gives you a couple different options. This is kind of a generic slot that you get on any battleship. Just take your pick, either one of these, right? Secondary mod is going to allow you to hit destroyers with secondaries more consistently and a little bit further. This is going to let you rotate your guns a little bit faster, but it'll increase your reload. I just went with secondary mod. That's another thing, is as you go up in battleships, you'll always have these 3 slots of the hull, the firing range, and the engine boost, but you get more and more of these other slots here, which are just generic slots that I could increase secondary range, or the other mod we talked about, or the firing range of the AA guns. Personally, on the Iowa, I recommend the AA guns firing range, especially carriers are unfortunately gonna become more of a menace as time goes on. Once you get up to, I think, rank 5, you have access to this slot. You could increase the rate at which your ship accelerates by cut it in half, or reduce the time it takes to change directions by 20%. Or you could reduce the fire or flood duration by 15%. Personally, I recommend one of these two, just because it's going to make your life a lot easier in the range, in the way of avoiding torpedoes. So you want to be able to avoid torpedoes. So yeah, you get more of these slots, and once you get to tier 7, you'll have access to this slot here for all of your different battleships, and you can kind of see the different options. Increase your accuracy, increase secondary battery reload time, don't recommend. Increase AA damage, or decrease your main battery reload at the cost of increasing the time it takes for your guns to move. Okay, so I think I've covered just about everything I can before we actually get into the gameplay. So let's go ahead and take out the Wyoming, and I will be running the Dispersion Commander, I think. Yes, so I have William Sims on this. So again, base which line you go down based on what commanders you have. If you don't have any battleship commanders, just pick a line, and once you unlock a battleship commander, you know, switch over to that other line, right? Well, let's go ahead and do this in the Wyoming. And this is live, so you don't have to sit here, and that's kind of like a staple point of all my videos, is I'm doing this live. It's all one take. Whatever happens, happens. I don't have to sit here and cherry pick videos for you guys. Okay. Sea of Fortune. I didn't know they had this map at tier 3. Alright, so here we go. You'll notice these maps, this is kind of like a capture and hold the area game mode. You get 3 different captures. The side you spawn on, this goes for any ship type. The side you spawn on, stay at it. Do not abandon it. So I see a lot of new players, they'll just start go ahead and reversing, thinking if they cluster up in one giant conglomerate of ships, that's going to make them better. They won't get focused as hard. Don't do that. I know sometimes you're going to be at a disadvantage. That happens. If that happens, hold the line for as long as possible. I'm not saying rush right into the cap. Don't do that as a battleship. That's a good way to get torpedoed and shot at by everything. But don't abandon your cap, okay? That's how you lose a game. I'm going to tell you why, is because if you abandon it, these guys have nothing stopping them from, one, capturing that base, which is going to give them points and allow them to win on points, and two, sailing all the way over. Let's take a look. All of our ships here are flat broadside to us, so imagine if the enemy team is in our position. They can just shoot all of our teammates and wipe them out. So do not abandon your cap. Hold it. Try and win it. If you can't win it, hold it. I'm looking at the mini-map, and way out there it looks like one of these guys is sailing backwards. That's another thing, is do not just start reversing at the start of the match. I know you're going to get shot at. It happens. You can take some hits. Do not start reversing at the start of the match. That's a good way to go. End up bad. So, as a battleship, you do not want... I'm going to do something you don't want to do here. I'm going to go ahead and go flat broadside to this guy. Okay? To get all of our guns off. So if we go flat broadside, the disadvantage of it is our armor gets a lot less thin, or a lot less thick, which allows people to try and penetrate us better, which means you're more likely to get citadeled. I'm going to go and shoot this guy. I'm aiming for the waterline, because I want to hit the citadel of the ship. That's where you'll deal the most damage. So try and hit the citadel. Aim for the waterline. There's certain ships where you aim in different spots, but for the most part, just aim right at that waterline and try and hit the center mass of the ship at the waterline and punch into that citadel. And do not do what I'm doing right here. The only reason I'm doing it is to show you what it looks like. Don't just sit like this, because you will get shot at by a battleship or a cruiser, and they'll citadel you. It's a lot more scary in a battleship versus a cruiser, but it happens. So don't do that. Instead of doing this, you can do a couple things. There's a channel, Spartan Elite 43, about this game. He coined a term, Dreadnought Shuffle. So the Dreadnought Shuffle is... Spartan may not have invented this. This might have been somebody else, but it's just where I've heard it from. Basically means where you're just kind of showing this angle here. You don't get all your guns off. You wait for the enemy to shoot, and then you turn out and get all your guns off, and then immediately turn back in. The other option is to angle your armor, just kind of like sit or drive very slowly at an angle to the enemy. So you don't necessarily want to be doing this, because at this tier you can do what's called overmatching. I'll explain that after this game. It also reduces how many guns you can shoot, so that's not ideal either. We're going to take a shot at the Emerald. Our dispersion was not that good, so we ended up dying from that. Now, you can see there's a battleship and a cruiser. No destroyers on this spawn. I'm paying attention to the map. I see one of the destroyers is over way off by an island stuck in C cap, and the other one is in B cap. Now he is heading towards us, so I'll have to keep that in mind. But as of right now, there's no destroyers. I don't want to get too close to a cruiser just in case they torpedo me, but I don't want to be so long range that I can't hit them. I'm going to take a shot. Didn't get much of anything there. But my goal here is just to kind of get into... Now see, this guy's sitting flat broadside to me, which means I can punch him. This is a solid angle that I'm giving to him, believe it or not. We're giving him about a 45-degree angle. So our armor is going to be a lot more effective at this angle.
The enemy team has taken the lead.
Also makes it harder to place the shot as well. So I'm not going to get the last gun off. I'm going to shoot there. And leave the one gun not fired just because it would require me to give too much of an angle. Unfortunately, my dispersion is not going too well, which, again, Without a dispersion commander, you may notice that. I'm going to cut in, try and give you more of an angle. He got us pretty good, but not as good as he could have gotten us. Instead, I'm going to go ahead and shoot this Emerald instead. He's an easier shot for me. Got him a little bit better there. This Emerald player has a pretty good idea of what he should be doing as a cruiser. I am located right now on my screen, which is basically talking about a destroyer skill. It means the destroyer is closest to me. So there are none of my teammates are closer to the destroyer than me. So I need to keep that in mind, and based on where I knew he last was, I'm gonna guess he's right there. I cannot see him, but I'm guessing that he's right there. So I'm gonna cut. I don't want to give flat broadside to this guy, but I want even less to take torpedoes. There he is. Looks like we were right. So, map awareness, guys. Just pay attention to the map. You have a lot better time. Now, not a good situation because I'm flat broadside, but I knew those were coming and I did not want to take those. So, I'm probably still going to end up taking one, but you can see it would have been a lot worse.
We're below the waterline. We're flooding quickly.
Now, right now I'm going to go ahead and take up a kiting position. I've kind of overextended myself. We're at a severe numerical disadvantage. There's only 2 of us and 5 of the enemy team, which means we're not likely to beat them in a fair fight. So we're not going to make the fight fair. We're going to kind of fight as we run away, which makes it harder for them to hit us. That said, it's not good that we're down 3-1 on caps. Not ideal at all. I know there is a battleship in that spot, but another key thing to do as a battleship or as any player, if you see a destroyer, shoot a destroyer, because you're not likely to see them too often, and they're deadly. When you get the shot, the opportunity to take a shot, take it. Now I'm kind of sandwiched between a lot of things here. Not ideal. Unfortunately, this kind of happens sometimes. There's not a whole lot you can do. But I'm just trying to hold out for as long as possible. There we go. Went down. So unfortunately, you can kind of see it wasn't really all us. We had a pretty severe numerical disadvantage here. 5-2. Had our teammates won their side or pushed their advantage, it wouldn't have gotten to that point. We would have had a fair gunfight, you know. If the team starts to overload you and, 5 people come to the enemy team's side, there's only 2 of them, you're not going to win that, right? But you can hold it. You can hold them off and survive for as long as possible. And that's really what you want to do in that scenario. Hold them off, and your teammates, who should be at a numerical advantage, since we're at a numerical disadvantage. We have an equal number of ships on each team. If there's 6 of them here, that means there's only 3 of them for this cap and this cap combined. So our team should be able to push right in, get those caps, and push out to their spawn or to the middle where they can get crossfires where they'd be overloading us, right? So even though we're way out here, disadvantaged, if our team's smart, they have pushed in and they've provided us support at a firing angle which is advantageous to them. So let's see here. I said I was going to go over something. I don't remember what it was. I'm trying to think. I'm drawing a blank. I don't remember what it was. Let me see if I can... I don't know. It'll come to me. So I'm going to run the Kaiser next. This is another popular line. It's the German line. I enjoy the German line at the low tiers more than the American line. Let's go ahead and run it. I'm not remembering what that was. Oh, something to do with armor. I think it was going to show armor. Armor thresholds, that's what it was. I need to remember to go over armor thresholds. That's a little more advanced than what you'll be dealing with at tier 3. This is more of a, you know, basic tier 3, right? This is just basic gameplay at tier 3. And then once you get a little bit higher, you'll get into armor thresholds, which become more significant as time goes on. And as you become a better player. Okay, so I'm going to make sure this one goes better than the last one. So they only have one destroyer, right? And the rest are battleships. There's 2 cruisers. The rest are battleships. Now this battleship is Germans in general are better off at. Wow, guys spotted from the very start. That's interesting. Anyway. German battleships in general are better off at mid to close range engagements. They don't want to be sniping from the back like maybe an American ship would, despite what that game would have you believe. Most of the American ships are more accurate than that. But it's tier 3. Tier 3 is kind of, you know. Kaiser's fun though. See, here we go. This guy is abandoning this cap, so is this guy. I am not going to follow their lead. I'm going to try and hold this side. This is not the smart thing to do. This is going to ensure that I pretty much am guaranteed to die now, but I'm going to hold for as long as possible to prevent the enemy team from getting a points advantage. The cap is already being captured, I can see that. It's more likely to be the destroyer than anything else, which is even more of a disadvantage for me, really. But I know how to deal with destroyers a little bit better. I'm going to load HE, because I know that is what's going to hurt him the most. My best chance is to remove him in a single shot, so I need to have HE loaded. AP is better to shoot at cruisers and broadside battleships. HE is better to shoot at angled battleships and destroyers. Keep that in mind. Destroyers do not have a citadel. So my team is abandoning me, and the enemy team is all coming this way. Severe disadvantage. Severe. But I cannot just give up. There's the Kaiser. Omaha, there's the destroyer. Okay. I'm going to cut in. I know there's torpedoes coming. So I'm cutting in. I'm loading HE still. I'm going to request some sport because I got no chance, you know, 1 to 5, right? But again, I'm not giving up here. I don't recommend rushing into the cap. I was thinking we dodged that. See, I'm just going to get focused by everything here. And this is why you do not abandon your cap. But I am putting up as valiant an effort to fight them as I can. Unfortunately, because I don't have all my guns off, I'm not going to be able to remove this guy. But I can hurt him. And you can see, as we predicted, we die because our team abandoned us. If our guys did not abandon us, and you notice, one of them ends up having to turn around again. So he really did nothing by leaving. This guy is still running, but he has not fired a single shot. He has nothing to shoot at. And because I died, now our team is more likely to die. You do not want to just let your teammates die. They will help you. And if they don't, they will provide something for the enemy to shoot at besides you. So keep that in mind. But I talked in the last video that destroyers are the most important targets to remove. I didn't get to remove this guy, unfortunately, but I did take out a lot of his health, which gives our destroyer a much bigger advantage in when he spots him. So he has the ability to remove him. It's unfortunate I died in the manner I did, but now their destroyer's dead and ours is alive, which gives us an advantage. So, even more of an advantage if there's no carriers. Much, much more of an advantage. So, keep that in mind. Sometimes you don't have to do all the damage. But don't abandon your teammates like that. You know? It might mean you survive longer, but it's going to mean you lose the game because the enemy team will get the cap, which is not what you want. Let's try the Wyoming again. Guys, a better game. Unfortunately, it's not as fun at tier 3 because nobody knows what they're doing, so you're going to get abandoned a lot. You can ping them and tell them to get back or requesting support. Sometimes they'll listen, sometimes they'll think they're better than you and they know better, so they'll retreat anyway, which is incredible. If the good players who are at high tiers tell you this is a bad idea, it's a bad idea. I know it may not look like it from the screen right now, but it is. I know I've died twice, right? But again, it comes down to I'm trying to hold for as long as I can. If I'm holding in a battleship against a destroyer alone, I'm not going to be able to hold that long, but I got to do what I got to do. And I did get a couple shots off on it, which gave our destroyer the gunfight advantage, which is important.
Battle starts.
So you see the located icon. Again, 99% of the time, that is coming from a destroyer. There's some American cruisers and some Russian cruisers which have that commander which has a skill on that, but 99% of the time, that is coming from a destroyer. So keep that in mind. That means there's probably a destroyer in B. If there's only one destroyer, which there is, that means he is spawned across from me. I'm no longer located, which it could be this guy now. But if I'm in front of these guys, I know they spawn out there. Can't see them, but I know they're out there. If I'm still in front of these guys and I'm no longer located, that means the destroyer probably went to the left or to the right, you know, and it now has one of these guys located, right? Keep that in mind. So I'm not going to push all the way into the cap with these guys, but I'm going to get closer. I'm going to get to probably about to where they are now, just to kind of make my guns a little more effective. Signal I'm spotted. So you see in the top left corner next to the map, it's got my detectability range, 12.5 kilometers, which if we look at the guns is to about right there. So I know there's something that's at least this close to me that is not detected itself. If it's not detected, it's probably not a battleship, it's probably a cruiser, and the more time goes on, the more likely it is a destroyer. The more time that goes on that it is not spotted. So I have 2 cruisers, luckily. They are counters to destroyers, so they are going to be able to help me out quite a bit. I have nothing else to shoot at, so I'm going to shoot this Königsberg. And because the destroyer, we go ahead and get him. Alright. We stole somebody else's kill, unfortunately. Only 350 points. There's the torpedoes. I don't know how this guy took a torpedo as a cruiser. I think that one gets sonar too, so. But it happens. So again, you don't necessarily want to rush right into the cap, but don't let him take it either. Usually that means the destroyer needs to be the one getting into the cap. If you don't have a destroyer and it's being captured, nothing else is spotted, a cruiser can get into that cap. You know, because they can avoid those torpedoes and they can spot that destroyer a lot better. So, we have shots on this Königsberg, who is broadside. Turn a little bit. Gonna shoot for the center of the ship at the waterline. He's backing up, so I'm gonna count for that a little bit. Shoot right about there. And let's see what happens. He sped up, so he's gonna get away with it, unfortunately. If he did not, he would not. Now you'll notice enemy team is kind of all conglomerating in different spots. This guy overextended. He's way too close for what he wants to be. We'll take these shots just because he's a bigger threat if he's close to us. But these guys are probably going to end up getting torpedoes off on him. So, yep. He's dead. Alright. So now, we know the destroyer's over there. We can see him, right? So we know he's not by us. There's only one destroyer. That's significant. Now, he's disappeared on our screen, but in the mini-map, we also see that little gray triangle that's signifying where he last was. So we can kind of take that into account, and that's why you don't want to show completely in front. That is what overmatching is. He went right through my bow because his guns are big enough. But I'm going to show you why you don't want to sit flat broadside. Hopefully. Seems like a random number generation kind of helps new players more. Nope, he did not get away with it. That's why you don't want to sit flat broadside. And this guy is shooting HE, so I'm not too worried about that. Now, damage control. Most of the time, I mean, if it's a battleship, you can damage con a single fire, which I'm going to in this scenario. I can damage con a single fire. If you're getting spammed by cruisers, do not damage con a single fire. Wait till you get double fired to do that. Again, don't sit flat broadside. That's what happens. You get punched. Angle your armor, which you want to show more of an angle than I am. Don't bow tank either until you get to tier 7. It's the only time that you can bow tank. You can see he shot at my belt. I'm showing enough angle for it to be worth it, or so he thinks. And he bounced and shattered the shells. Now I'm being spammed by cruisers here.
Enemy heavily damaged.
We get that citadel. I'm just kind of holding this for as long as possible. I'm going to shoot the cruiser rather than the battleship. He's got more of an advantage on our destroyers and stuff, so I don't want him to be able to capture that base. Unfortunately, looks like I'm going to die here. So again, our guys kind of left, torpedoed the battleship. I don't blame them for that, but come back, you know, don't just let them have it. But also know when you need to retreat as well. I should have probably cut through that gap, all things considered. But I just kind of wanted to prevent them from getting that for as long as possible. The better move would have been, I'd recognize the disadvantage. I can let them have one cap, but unfortunately our right flank kind of fell apart too, so I didn't want to give them 2 caps. I just wanted to hold that for as long as possible. Now, only 46,000 damage. I'm more used to higher tier damage numbers, so let me check what my hit points are here. 44. So I did about as much damage as I have hit points, which, you know, kind of tells me that I did more or less enough, right? But that's kind of the gist of it. Now I'm going to go ahead and switch up to a higher tier. Before I do that, I'm going to explain some armor thresholds to you guys to kind of explain why I got punched when I was showing, you know, directly from the front here. Okay. So if I take a look, I guess it's in battle, so I can't look at the Wyoming. Let's look at the New York. Let's see what the Wyoming has. 305, so that's 12-inch guns. New York has 14-inch guns, which is 356. So, here we have the New York. This is a pretty solid battleship, quite a bit better than the Wyoming, as I recall. It's been a while since I've played it, but it's quite a bit better. It's a solid battleship. Tier 4 is a lot more fun than Tier 3, and I think Tier 5 is more fun than Tier 4. That's just me. That's a popular opinion, though. So, let's take a look at this. 19 millimeters. So, there's a calculation, I'm not too familiar with it, that basically tells you what kind of gun will be able to punch through your armor at any angle. I am familiar with Tier 5 and above, which is, again, where you're going to spend most of your time. So I'm going to look at a Tier 5 battleship, just so I don't quote you guys wrong numbers. But at lower tiers, you know, Tier 4, Tier 3 especially, just be under the assumption that most, if not all, battleships will be able to go right through your bow and access your citadel. So you don't want to show directly to the bow, you want to angle your armor like we talked about. And that's what you want to do at pretty much every tier. Let's go to our Tier 5 Tennessee here. Let's take a look at the armor. So, it's kind of green armor everywhere. You remember the Tier 7, it was like a lot thicker, right? This is 25 millimeter plating. So what that signifies is that 25 millimeter plating can be what we call overmatched by anything that has 15-inch guns or larger. So anything with 15s, 16s, you're not going to come across 18s at tier 5. 16s is really the biggest you'll come across. So anything with 15s or 16s is going to be able to go right through your bow. In particular, 380 and above. I think it's 376. So, you know, if you came across something that had 360s, it couldn't do it, but there's nothing like that. So keep in mind, anything with 15s or 16s can go right through your bow. The Tennessee has 14-inch guns. It has 356s. So, and pretty much every battleship at tier 4 and tier 5 and tier 6 has 25mm plating, which means 15s will go right through and punch them for a lot of damage. So, Tennessee can be overmatched by 15s. Keep that in mind. Also, if we take a look at the upper belt here. Oops. So you see the Citadel. We talked about citadeling a battleship. I'll show you what you mean. This part right here, the only part left, this is the Citadel. Some ships it's raised, which means it's easier to hit. Some ships it's below the water, like on this, which basically means you're a lot more likely to be hit at range than you are up close. So this plating here, the case or the auxiliary room armor, the casemate's thicker, it's 343, but the auxiliary room is also 25, which means at any angle, 15-inch guns will go right through. So, and penetrate. You cannot angle. So you want to be angling and hoping that they're shooting at the water line. You want them to hit this area here. This is thick armor. 343 is a lot thicker than 25, which means if you're angling, you can prevent a 15-inch gun from penetrating. It will bounce right off, dealing no damage. So that's what you want to be doing, is showing them enough angle to trick them into shooting at the waterline like this. I'd say probably about this right here. Get them to shoot at that waterline, right? And they'll bounce those shells. If you're doing this against 15-inch guns, they will go right through. Now, if you come across a 14-inch gun battleship or below at tier 5, you can do this. They cannot punch through, and they won't be able to deal much damage to you. But again, I still recommend angling instead of bow tanking. At tier 5, the only few battleships that are going to be able to overmatch you at tier 5 are the Queen Elizabeth, which has 15-inch guns, so it can overmatch all the bows, and the Bayern, the German battleship, also has 15-inch guns, but they're much less accurate. If we take a look at the Bayern as well, you'll notice the entire bow is not 25mm. It is actually only 25 at the top. This is what's called an icebreaker bow. I think every German battleship in the game gets this. It means they only overmatch through the top. The bottom will bounce shells. So it's harder to overmatch, but it still can be done. But these guns are a lot more inaccurate, and it gets hurt pretty bad at range. But Bayern's a solid tier 5 battleship. It's just inconsistent. So keep that in mind. Bayern and Queen Elizabeth, only two that are going to be able to overmatch you at tier 5, and then there's two premiums, the Mutsu and the West Virginia. They have 16-inch guns, so they can also overmatch you as well. If you go up against tier 6s, the Colorado's got 16s, North Carolina's got 16s, Nagato's got 16s, King George has 14s, so you can bow tank that, but Gneisenau's got 15s, Leon has like 13.5, so it can't. Senop also has 16s, Carcolio has 15s. Pretty much everything can overmatch you at tier 6. So we talked about 25. It can be overmatched by 15s and 16s. Everything pretty much has 25 at tier 5 and tier 6, in fact. They get the same 25mm bows at tier 6. So 15s and 16s punch right through. If we go up to tier 7, let's take a look. Tier 7 battleships have 32, which basically means everything cannot punch through with the exception of a single ship in the entire game right now. It's going to change in the future probably with more of the fake ships, but right now there's only one. And he guesses Yamato. It's the biggest guns in the game. 18.1s. That means only 460mm guns or above can punch through 32. Yamato is the only ship which has 460s. There is another ship which has 18.0s, which is 457s. You're not going to come across it often, but this is it. This is Georgia. It's kind of a rare ship. It has 457s, which is not enough to overmatch 32. It's just barely not enough. It would have to be 460 instead of 457s. So it's really just as good as 16s in your book. So at tier 7, every battleship has 32, which means you can battle tank everything except Yamato. Keep that in mind. And HE. HE punches through a bow anyway, but most people don't know that. Even experienced players, for the most part, don't know that yet. But keep that in mind, so you can battle tank things at tier 7. And every battleship at tier 7 in the tech tree has at least 15-inch guns. There's some premiums which don't, but every tech tree battleship has 15s, which means if you come across a tier 6, you can overmatch its bow. You can shoot right at its bow and slap it. So keep that in mind. Again, it comes down to, you know, if you come across a Yamato, you want to be angling. It's hard to do. I know it is hard to do, but you want to be angling instead of bow tanking, because bow tanking is not going to do anything for you. So perfect your skills in angling more than bow tanking. That's more important than battle tanking. But aside from that, let's show you one other armor threshold here. Two others, rather. There's two other significant ones. And these are found on cruisers. So if we go take a look at the average tier 7 cruiser, let's take a look at the... Now, with tier 6 and below, if you're a battleship, doesn't matter what it is, you can shoot right at a cruiser's bow and overmatch. So as a cruiser player, I'll get into what you want to do in a separate video. But let's look at the Amalfi here. The Amalfi gets basically tier 6 battleship bow, 25mm. It can be overmatched. So you notice that, and if you have a battleship, you can shoot right at its bow. You know, as long as you have 15-inch guns, you punch right through. There are 3 ships, 3 cruisers you come across at tier 7. That is not always the case for. We have the Baltimore here, which has 27mm of plating. The difference between this and 25 is that 15-inch guns cannot punch through, but 16s can. So if you come across a 16-inch gun battleship, it can punch right through at any angle. You cannot bow tank it. If you come across a 15-inch battleship, you can. So Baltimore, it's scared of 16-inch battleships. 15-inch battleships, it wrecks. Hipper, same deal as Baltimore, covered in 25. It does get an icebreaker bow, but for the most part, it's covered in 25 everywhere. So 15s you can't overmatch with 15s, but you can with 16s at Hipper. And lastly, we have the Edinburgh. This ship right here has 30mm everywhere. The difference between this and 32 is that there's only one ship right now that this makes a difference for. That's the Georgia. 457s are capable of overmatching, so Yamato and Georgia can go right through the Edinburgh's bow at any angle. Keep that in mind. But this is not a ship you'll come across often. It's a tech tree, but it's not popular. But it can be overmatched by Georgia. So if you have 16-inch battleship, you cannot overmatch this ship, but you can absolutely nuke it from a flat broadside. So those are your main thresholds, so keep that in mind. 25, 15, 16s go right through. 27, 16s go right through. But 15s cannot. 30, that's 457s and 460s, so only Georgia and Yamato right now go right through. And 32, only the Yamato goes through. Only 460s and above. Those are your armor thresholds. Now, for our last game here, last game for this tutorial, I'm going to show a game in the Iowa and show you what high tier battleship gameplay is like. And also give you an idea of what guns start to behave like they definitely get better at different tiers. But this is a... I'll do 2 more. I'll do 1 at tier 7 and 1 at tier 5, just to kind of show you the differences, right? And then I think I'm going to start a regular stream and just play games that I want to play. Okay, so there are no destroyers in this match, and we can also take a look at the screen here. We notice VI, it's Roman numerals for 6. If you see tier 6 ships, it means you are the top tier. It means you're not going up against legendary tiers. VII is 7, and then the star means legendary tier. So we are top tier. Again, we can bow tank everything in this game. It's viable at tier 7, but I recommend angling instead of bow tanking, usually. So we spawned in the A cap. I'm not going to rush into A, but I'm not going to let the enemy do it. And you also notice teammates start to be a little bit better, with the exception of this guy here, who's going to abandon us. But not all of our teammates are abandoning us anymore at tier 7. And I'm just going to ping this guy.
Get back!
Get back.
I need your support.
I need support. Sometimes they listen. See? He's listening. Or at least he says he is. Yep, he's turning back around. So sometimes that works. Not always, but sometimes.
Enemy force detected.
Now you'll notice we have very far range on the Iowa. It's a bit further than most other battleships. I don't want to rush right into the cap, but there are no destroyers in this game, but I'm going to play it like any other game, right? I don't want to reverse. I don't want to get too close. I just want to kind of keep the engagements around 16 kilometers to 10 kilometers. Nothing closer than that. But I don't want to be sniping at 19.35. I want 16 to 10 kilometers. That's my engagement range I want in the Iowa. I'm spotted. It's probably a cruiser. There are no destroyers. So, yes, it's Cleveland. Gonna take a quick shot at him. You'll notice those guns are quite a bit better. I've seen better salvos than that even. But we get 3 pens for 4,000. Over pens, rather. It's a light cruiser. Cleveland is a scary ship if it gets into a position from behind an island and just spams you. No longer spotted, so there's probably another cruiser out there helping him. Our hipper's taking shots at him, but I'm going to take another shot and try and help out our hipper. Let's wait for him to turn around. I want to time this shot. I also need to be cautious of what kind of angle I'm showing as well. So, there's an Iowa, so definitely don't want to go flat broadside to that. Let's take a shot right there. Because I know he's turning. Let's see what we get. He's going to dodge, but dispersion helped us out and gave us a pen for 6,000. If you're overmatching a light cruiser, you're more likely to get a full pen than shooting a completely flat broadside or an angled ship as well. That's better than flat for light cruisers, usually. Anything else you want flat, not angled. So you can see we're overloaded here. A little bit, anyway. We want to help out this hipper. He's a little overcommitted. He's being shot at by more than he wants to be. We do not want to abandon him. Fortunately, we couldn't get there in time. But okay. They are overloading the middle. That's what it is. Support, if you can, support a flank that's being overrun. They have completely abandoned C, so...
Teammate, I need your support.
I'm going to signal these guys to get to B. Because they are overmatched. There are no ships at sea from the looks of it, but... Alright. Actually, I guess there's one of them out there. There's an Iowa. He's angled. You notice that. He's angled, so we cannot punch through to his citadel. There's a hipper that's giving us a better look. I'm going to take that shot instead. We're going to angle to this Iowa. We smacked the hipper pretty good. If we were a 15-inch battleship, we would have had a much harder time doing that. Chapayev, we're going to reverse a little bit to try and prevent who all can shoot at us. Not a great look at the Iowa. He's hiding behind the island. We're going to take that shot real quick at the hipper. try and get him off the board. You'll notice the Iowa's guns quite accurate compared to what we've seen so far. He gets lucky and those shells fall short. There's kind of a bug right now where they're falling short. I don't want to be shot at by all of these guys. I don't want to hide, but I don't want to be shot at by all these guys. I'm going to wait to damage con this. Normally I would damage con this, but I'm going to wait till I can get to a more advantageous position. I'm going to go ahead and do it now, because I don't want them to set me on fire again. I want to make them come back out and spot me so I can shoot them before they get another fire. I do not want them to get free damage. Now we are quite overloaded here. We have a numerical disadvantage. I'm not sure why we're spotted.
The ship is on fire.
Gonna take a quick shot at that Cleveland. And we're immediately double fired again. And we missed our shot. You can see how Cleveland can be scary despite it being a cruiser, because it can just shoot you while you can't shoot it back. You want to limit its ability to do that as much as you can. Unfortunately, he gets a shot that he gets 2 fires that are just going to burn through. I cannot damage con them. But again, kind of a stalemate here. Our teammates really need to start winning their side at this point. We're going to shoot the superstructure of that Iowa. We're a little over angled to him. He doesn't get anything crazy. We should hit the superstructure. We can't consistently do that, but 1 or 2 salvos we can get some pretty nasty shots on him. I'm going to try and take out this Tallinn.
Fire.
I overmatch him, but he's going to try and do the whole dodging thing. I'm going to go ahead and damage con. We're quite overmatched here, numerically.
All stations, concentrate fire on the target.
Our team really needs to start winning their sides. It looks like they are. So that's good. It's not going to matter. We're dead. But we've at least done the best we can in terms of holding the side. So, again, we take a look at the whole map itself. Our team should be winning their engagements. Doesn't look like they're really doing that too well, but this could go either way. When you're overmatched like that, it's, you're kind of in a rough position. There's not too much you can do. I could have turned around and started kiting instead. I could have pushed around that island, tried to close the distance a little bit, like that Alabama's doing. But this kind of stuff happens. What's up, Emma Weezy? And for our last game here, I'm going to show you a Tier 5 match. Queen Elizabeth here. I'm going to run Cunningham instead of this commander. And let's run this one. So when you have a lot of HE spam ships like that, like the Cleveland and the Chapayev, not a fun game to be in an accurate sniping battleship like that, like in the Iowa. It's also not fun when you get outnumbered, right? Happens, unfortunately. And I could be doing a better job of holding the side, but is what it is. I didn't get a whole lot of good looks in that shot, or in that game. So let's hope this one's better. We're top tier. 3 destroyers. So, Queen Elizabeth, we're going to load AP primarily, since we overmatch all the bows, but the HE is very solid in Queen Elizabeth, because it is a British battleship. All the British ships have great HE. All the British battleships, I should say. We spawned on this side, so we're not abandoning our side. We're staying here. Luckily, our two guys are doing that as well. Let's do this. The Queen Elizabeth is probably the best tech tree battleship at tier 5, so keep that in mind. Because you overmatch all the bows of anything you come across, any tier. You can overmatch all the bows at tier 6, and it's accurate. Bayern is not accurate. This one is. So Tennessee's got an argument too. It's not all about overmatching, keep that in mind, but it definitely helps out quite a bit. So we were spotted for a second. We are not going to rush into that cap. We're no longer spotted. There's a smoke screen out there. Enemy force detected. Could be the Emerald, technically, which it looks like that was the Emerald. Emerald's a cruiser that does get a smoke screen. B is starting to get captured, so that means there's a destroyer in it. There's the Königsberg. We're going to go around this island just so we can get a shot on that Königsberg. Not going in, because we don't want to be the closest thing to the destroyer. We want cruisers and destroyers on our team in between us and the enemy destroyer. Take a quick shot. And we smacked him. That was luck more than anything. But you also notice we didn't overpen him. That is British short fuse armor piercing. You noticed how we overpenned the Cleveland a lot. Well, you're a lot less likely to do that in Vanguard than you are in the Iowa. So that's kind of another benefit to running something like the Vanguard. So destroyer spotted. We're going to shoot the destroyer. Again, if a destroyer gets spotted, shoot it. You will regret it if you do not. Lead him quite a bit since he's a destroyer. We know he's fast. There's a Nevada. And we get him. Again, you're not going to get crazy damage off doing that, but we just knocked a significant amount of his health points off. So that gives these two guys, when they next spot him, a much better chance of winning that gunfight. It's at the end of the day, it is their job and the cruiser's job to find and remove the destroyers. That's high priority. Looks like our Farragut's going to do that. We get a pretty good look at this König here. I'm going to aim halfway up. This is German ships. This is about where you want to aim, right here. Going to pop our spotter plane to increase our dispersion. Take that shot. Dispersion is so-so. Still could be solid. Nope. Overshoot him. That's dispersion more than our shot placement, unfortunately. Not a whole lot we can do about that. It happens to the best of us. Although König may be thinly armored enough that we could just punch right through at the waterline, but we're going to be more focused on this Emerald here, since he's coming right out. I guess not. Alright, well then instead we're going to shoot the Nevada. Now, Queen Elizabeth, you can properly angle and get all 4 guns off at the same time. We're going to aim upper half of its belt, unless he goes flat broadside, in which case we will shoot the waterline. Looks like that's what he's doing. So we're going to go ahead and take this shot right there, and let's see what happens. Should be a good one. Nothing too great. We should have paid more attention to those torpedoes. That's my fault. And that's why you want to get rid of destroyers when you can, so that way they can't go around doing that. This Nevada is still showing us a flat broadside, so we're going to take another shot. This time we're going to aim halfway up, try and overmatch that top section of the belt that we talked about earlier. Let's see what we get. That's pretty solid, 8,000. There's the Koenig way out there. See again, angled, he bounced that shot. He has 14-inch guns, which is really good for Tier 4. Nevada's a great ship at Tier 4. But, it's just, you know, it's not enough. Again, aiming about halfway up, specifically because I know what his armor is. I know it's 25, and I know I overmatch it. So, despite him being angled, we can smack him for 10k just like that. If he's showing flat, shoot the waterline. If he's not, most tiers you're going to want to shoot the superstructure. In this case, I'm aiming for the top half of the belt, but that's just because I know the threshold and I'm a more experienced player. But you could probably do the same thing by shooting the superstructure right about there. I'm going to still aim probably there. Let's see what we get. Another 6,000. Not as good, but still not bad. That would be a worse salvo at Tier 7 than Tier 5 and Tier 4. 6,000's not bad at Tier 4 at all. So he's pretty much dead. I don't have to get the kill. It's not all about kills. You know, if nobody's shooting this guy, if they're having a trouble removing him, take that shot. Get some guns off the board. That reduces the enemy team's ability to deal damage. But, you know, don't just try and steal your teammates' kills. Try and do what's going to be the most effective, such as taking a threat for one of your teammates off the board, or if you get the opportunity to hurt somebody really bad, you know, chunk a lot of their hit points, go for that. Or if you get the opportunity to shoot a destroyer, don't worry about kill stealing, take the shot, just guarantee the kill. Fubuki just got torpedoed by their enemy Fubuki, which is not good. Take a quick shot at this Koenig out here. He's far off and I can see it will take 10.93 seconds for these shells to arrive, so I'm going to shoot probably right about here. This is just me eyeballing it. And we'll see what happens. That looks like I shot about the right spot. Again, dispersion more than anything. Alright, Emil Bertin got theirs. Their Fubuki's way out there. So we gotta watch out for these torpedoes, but from the looks of it, we'll outrun them. So we're good there. I might give you guys one more at Tier 7 just because it was such a disappointing match, that last one. It's a bad match in the Iowa. All they have left is a destroyer, and we know he was pretty far out when we last saw him, although I guess he could be around that island. But still, we probably have a fair amount of time before we see him, so we're going to load HE instead of AP because that's going to hurt more. We also know he's still in the cap, so we were spotted momentarily, unspotted. I'm guessing we're going to get spotted again in a second. I'm guessing he's behind that island right now. He'll probably come out right there. Yep. We're spotted again. We'll probably get unspotted in just a second. And if we do, that's going to kind of confirm our suspicions. Yep. So he's probably going to run into our Koenig. Or our cruiser, if I had to guess. Potentially. It's contested though, so he's still in the A cap. So there he is. Yep. Take a quick shot. Not incredibly likely to hit him at this range, but we gotta shoot him anyway. Just barely undershoot him.
In 5 minutes.
Now, play the objectives. You know, don't just chase damage. Try and get into these caps. Luckily, we have our team doing it. But if nothing else, we should be supporting these guys, clearing the way of obstructions for them to get into these caps. Because you can wipe the floor with the enemy team, but if they have all the caps, they can still win on points, and it happens a fair amount of the time. So keep that in mind. We're going to do one more in the Iowa here, and then I'm going to call this video at that. No, it's a rather long one, but I wanted to go over everything I really could, right? Give you guys as in-depth of a video as possible. We're on hotspot now. You're not really going to know this, you don't have to know this, but I know that this is not a map that legendary tier ships spawn in, so I don't have to worry about that. Now if this video does well, I will make a video, kind of a guide to legendary tier as well, but this is kind of like most other tiers, which is where most of your games are going to be played. Not for any other reason other than legendary tier kind of is a little broken. Oh, never mind. I was thinking of a different map. This is legendary tier. Okay. Yeah, so you can see there's a Yamato and a Conqueror. There's a Worcester and a Minotaur. And a Kagero.
Battle starts.
So we need to be cautious of the Yamato because he can overmatch our bow. Tricky to angle correctly, but we need to make a conscious effort to do that. We're going to, we have a Kerr first, and Alaska, and us. So Alaska has a radar. You'll kind of know this as time goes on. You'll know which ships have radars. Radars allow them to spot destroyers when destroyers are not expected to be spotted, even if they're out of their usual spotting range. So he can spot a destroyer at like 10 kilometers for 30 seconds. He also has a sonar which can spot them for a couple of minutes at a closer range, but through a smoke screen, and can also spot torpedoes early too. So it's kind of an advantage. You can kind of imagine that, right? Alaska's got some pretty big guns too. I think it's 12-inch guns, which they hurt. They're cruiser guns, so they get increased pen. Now we can see the Yamato's coming to us. We're going to ping him, just hoping that one of our guys over here takes a shot at him. And discourage him from coming this way, right? Doomy, I feel like I've played against this guy before. It's an HE spammer. Just gonna take a quick shot at him. But yeah, if they're abandoning their cap like that, if that requires them to show a pretty flat broadside, which means, you know, somebody can punish them, especially in a Yamato. Yamato is one of those ships that get punished.
Concentrate fire on the enemy warship.
Now C is being capped, so I know it's probably a destroyer. Could be the Minotaur. Here comes the Yamato. He's showing a flat broadside. Gonna take a quick shot at him. Need to be careful of those shells because they hurt.
The ship is on fire.
We could end up hurting him though. No, he got away with it. And we're being overloaded here. We need to just hold this side for as long as possible. Not a good situation for us. Again, we're getting overloaded quite a bit. So, here come Yamato shells. I'm angled. Doesn't get us too bad.
Fire on the designated target.
We're just kind of waiting. We're going to push up closer to the island just so they can't really shoot us without us being able to shoot them. Take a shot at that destroyer. We take most of his hit points.
All stations, concentrate fire on the target.
Need somebody to shoot at him, please. Dude, Alaska, shoot this guy, please, 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 please. We're gonna try and speed up past the island. And their destroyer gets away. We're gonna go ahead and load AP again. kind of speeding up past the island just so that way his torpedoes have no chance of catching us up here. There's a Conqueror right there. Oh shit, it's Ghazi. It's Ghazi. I know this guy. Okay, he's with Impact. That's why we're having such a rough time. Conqueror is scary. I don't think he's stream sniping me. Could be. But it's probably just pure chance. That's why everyone's congregating on this side of the map. Again, we're just kind of holding them. Our guys have a severe advantage over there. So, dude, you should not be retreating. You got them 6-2, 6-3, and we're overloaded 3-6. It's not a good situation for us here. Again, we're just kind of kiting, you know.
The ship is on fire.
Hit him pretty good there. We got to get rid of these guys. These guys are going to melt us. Ugh. Gonna take a shot at him.
The ship is on fire.
Not what we wanted. So, unfortunately, sometimes it happens. We are overloaded quite a bit. Not a whole lot we can do here. We really needed to get rid of those cruisers and that destroyer. I can't rush those cruisers because of that destroyer. I really wish our Alaska would have shot them. I'm not really sure why he's all the way back here. He's running. So, but yeah, you get overloaded and outmatched like this. Not much you can do to win. You really just need to hold for as long as you can, right? But we definitely could be doing better. That said, I've really got to get a good game at Tier 7 for you guys. These last two have been horrible. We're going to do another common. Do another Tier 7 battleship. Richelieu. Kansas, Vanguard. Let's do the Vanguard. I'm gonna run a free-to-play commander for you guys. Charles Madden's the one to do. Let's check my inspirations. That looks solid. Looks solid enough. Let's do the Vanguard. Yo, Ghazi, if you're in here, thanks for that, bud. Overloading our side with your YouTube famous fanboys. I'm trying to make a fucking tutorial here. No, I'm just kidding. Still, not making for a good video when that happens. So you can see why Legendary Tier is usually not a lot of fun, especially if you're in Tier 7. The difference between a Legendary tier ship and a Tier 7 ship is pretty massive. Especially when it's a Worcester and a Minotaur. Those things spam the crap out of you and shred your hit points if you're in a battleship. So, and this is a 5 destroyer game. Another not good match. Matchmaking, it's definitely not a battleship friendly game, unfortunately. In general, not just this match, but in general, they definitely discourage people from playing battleships for sure. But so we spawned B. We're not rushing the B cap, but we're not abandoning it. We're going to provide support for our Kagero here. We're spotted. Now, the thing about Vanguard is it does have bad firing angles, so you don't want to be sitting in a spot where you can get all four of your guns off. You want to be a little more angled than that, and just kind of shuffle.
Enemy force sighted on the horizon.
That guy is just out of a range. This is a disadvantage of running a tank build, is you lose quite a bit of range doing it. So he hits our superstructure pretty good. There's a destroyer there. And our destroyer has abandoned us, which means this destroyer is free to torpedo us. The only thing we can shoot at right now is this Akazuki. That is a destroyer. We're going to account for him going backwards, shoot some HE at him, and hopefully remove him from the game. Nope. This Benson's mad. He's not going to get to torpedo us, so he's going to try and shoot us.
I need your support.
This guy abandoned us.
Concentrate fire on that enemy warship.
We do have the potential to remove this guy in a single shot in the Vanguard, so we might be able to rush him, potentially. At least, if he comes to us, that is. Here's his torpedoes. It's actually probably his second destroyer's torpedoes, so you need to be cautious of that. Come on, other guns. We took most of his hit points with just 2 guns, so you can see with all 4 he would have been dev struck. So British HE is good. We're spotted again. Taking a quick shot at the Benson. We missed most of those shots, so we're gonna go ahead and turn. No torpedoes are coming. We're not using the reload booster yet. We could have, but we saw him smoke up, so we didn't want to waste it. We want to use that at an opportune moment. I don't want to go back out broadside. I'm just going to kind of stay nose in for the most part, just so that way I don't eat torpedoes. And we're going to wait for this guy to spot him. Now at this point, I'm going to go ahead and expose a little more angle. We can see him. We're going to pop a secondary booster because this is the best time to do it. Wait for him to give us a better shot than that. He shot 5 his torps right there. And he's gone. We're slowing down. See those torps? He kind of missed those, so. Alright, so now we've won B cap. Boise. We're gonna go ahead and shoot him. We're gonna switch to AP for this guy in a moment for sure. Now you can see the reload on Vanguard's really good. Goofed that shot, but we're gonna get this cap. And these are kind of how 5 destroyer games go. The destroyers on one team or another get steamrolled and you know, nobody does any damage. That's why they're not fun. There went the Boise. All that's left are the Brandenburg. He's pretty much dead. This Champagne, way out there. There's Alabama, also way out there. We're gonna take a quick shot at Champagne. We'll use the reload booster if he gives us an angle. Alright, we're gonna go ahead and pop it. Now you notice our reload was just cut in half. You can see how this is advantageous. We're going to get another shot on this guy that would not get otherwise. It'd be even better if we had all 8 of them. But also, really good dispersion out of Vanguard. And we get him pretty good. That gives us like an extra shot and a half, that reload booster. Didn't last the whole reload that time. We're gonna switch to HE. Because he's angled. There's Alabama. We're gonna shoot HE at Champagne, and especially since he just damaged Con. That was foolish. If we had the reload booster still, we could punch this Alabama really hard. Unfortunately, we do not. We get a double fire. That's why you don't damage Con a single fire. You damage Con one, I hit him with two, and now there's nothing he can do about that. And go ahead and shoot some AP at the Champagne since he's given us another questionable angle. That's a pretty lightly armored ship as it is. Switch to HE too. He's shooting HE at us, which is foolish. It's not what you want to do, because this ship gets really good heals. I've not had an opportunity to showcase it so far, but it does. So these guys are not in a good situation. There's not a whole lot they can do. Champagne puts out our fires. We're going to set them on fire again. And we're going to miss those shots, actually, first. Then we'll put them on fire again. There we go. Now we're going to damage Con this. Now you see the heal. That's quite a bit. And really, I've seen him get more than that, but that's about a quarter of our ship's health. We hit 5 of them with the tank build. And the dispersion's not bad. So. So you can definitely see why you'd choose a ship that has 15-inch guns and fewer of them versus one that has 16s. We're going to keep HE loaded just because he's not going to keep showing that angle. And we'll do better with HE than AP at this angle. There's our high caliber. And he's dead. Alright. So yeah, that's that. Match over. You get to see what it recent battles. We placed third. It's not too bad. 87k. It's pretty solid. Let's see here. I've done a few different matches. The first Wyoming was a defeat. Second Wyoming was a defeat. But you can also see that even some of these Iowa games that we end up overmatched on, if we hold long enough, the team comes through in clutches. But that was a horrible game, this one. Really, both of these, this Iowa one was, all of them have been bad, unfortunately. But you can also see our team just kind of got steamrolled, unfortunately. Do not let these kind of ships spam you. Do anything you can. Don't run. You know, don't just retreat, but find some way. Island cover, drop spot. Don't let them keep that advantage if you can help it at all of just shooting you without being able to get shot back. Find that destroyer, kill it so they don't have intelligence, drop spot, use some island cover, something. You know? So just keep that in mind. But yeah, with that said, that's going to be the end of this tutorial, guys. I'm going to go ahead and start another stream. Which is just going to be a regular stream, and I'll edit this into its own little video. But yeah, Vanguard is worth the grind. It's a great ship. I definitely recommend it. So, but it's going to be the end of this one. I'll start another one right up, which is going to be a regular stream, and I'll turn